Thanks, everyone. Problem with glasses, you have to read them and take them off to see at distance. All right, we might get started. Thank you. My name's Anthony Collins from City of Parramatta in Sydney, and today I'll be your chairperson for Sustainable Procurement. We've got some great speakers lined up today. I just first make a note that the last speaker, Nicole from Edge Impact, is an apology and couldn't make it, so she will speak on circular procurement for local government. That won't happen now, but we have Marcel here from EPA who's going to fill in and do a great job telling us how we can potentially collaborate and get some money in New South Wales. Our first speaker will be Dian, and she'll be looking at experiences in Victoria. Marcel obviously talking about EPA's opportunity for local government in New South Wales. We've got a practical experience from Vincent regarding SSROC in Sydney and practical applications for recycled content in our pavement and roads. And then obviously we've got Abbas, who is going to talk to us about the importance of collaboration, which I'm sure will be a common theme to today's talks. So first I'd like to welcome Dian. I'll read out her bio. Sorry, I've just got to check my app back up. She's the team lead for Recycle First Local Government at Sustainability Victoria, where she works with councils to increase their knowledge and capability and capacity in circular procurement with a focus on recycled materials products in infrastructure. She manages the Buy Recycled service, which includes tools, resources and events, and champion program. She has experience in working in corporate, tertiary and local government sectors in sustainability, communications and engagement. She's particularly interested in behaviour change, like we all are, research and uplifting teams and organisations to take positive environmental actions. So welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Sorry, the screen is just off. Maybe it will come back on. I'd just like to begin today's session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands upon which I'm based today, the Gumbaynggirr people, and I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which I live and work in beautiful Melbourne, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nations. What if bike lanes, playgrounds, roads were not just everyday infrastructure items, but were used as stepping stones to a circular future? What if they were used to get communities thinking about their resources? And what if they were used to connect industry and government? My name is Dian Lipiarski and I'm the team lead of the Recycled First Local Government Program at Sustainability Victoria. Today I'll be speaking about how we develop the Buy Recycled service for local government, an education and behaviour change program aimed at increasing the use of recycled materials and products in infrastructure projects. I'll also chat about some of the council barriers and drivers that we found through our work developing the service, what created the biggest impact, and how we're using these partnerships with local government to take the next step towards a circular procurement future. So let's start at the beginning. What role does local government play in driving the circular economy? The role of councils within the circular economy continues to build momentum. Councils are playing a critical role in driving markets for recycled products and materials and fostering innovation. And we're now working towards transitioning this towards a circular procurement. So local government can use significant buying power, and government more broadly across state and federal government as well, to purchase and preference recycled and circular products in their procurements. This also triggers the market to prioritise the inclusion of these materials as well. So we engaged with a consultant a couple of years ago on local government procurement in infrastructure projects to see what level of scope was out there. And we did this across all 79 councils in Victoria. And from this research, it was forecast that over a 3-year period, councils would be spending $12 billion on capital works. So imagine if all local government got together, all state and federal funding was used, what could be achieved? Local government also plays a key role in educating the community on the benefits of a circular economy. For example, if we take a recycled plastic bench, the community can see, they can touch, they can use the recycled product, and then they have a better understanding of what happens to their recycling, and then they're more likely to engage in some of those positive behaviours that support a transition to a circular economy. Local government also plays a critical role in providing intel back to suppliers on what is required for circular products and recycled products to compete with some of those more traditional products. So that can also push industry to drive new thinking and advancements. Local government also, at a smaller scale, can trial the products, allowing for more opportunities to pivot and adjust and improve on performance. But getting councils to consider recycled products in comparison to traditional products is complex. So firstly, there's a range of departments that are involved in decision making. There's engineers, there's procurement, there's sustainability, there's waste, and the list goes on. And as you can see from this list, there's also a range of drivers and barriers for local government to adopt some of these newer products. So when we developed the biorecycled service, we went out to all Victorian councils with a survey to ask them these questions about what some of the influences were and barriers were for them adopting these products. So as you can see, some of the influences, positive influences, were having experience using the product and having a good experience, understanding what the benefits were to the products, and if they had the information available to build a business case, and if they had also a personal interest in sustainability. That was also something driving this change. On the other end, as I'm sure a lot of us know, some of the barriers were if councils had concerns around performance, if they had a perceived that the product would cost more than a traditional product, if they had poor experience in the past of a product or a similar product, and if there weren't standards or specifications available that they could use. So what do we actually do at SV to address some of these barriers? So we work with councils across Victoria, and we've engaged with 90% of councils through the biorecycled service. And we've developed the service really to address the barriers and some of the drivers I mentioned on the previous page, and also to meet the needs of the different departments that are involved in decision making. So what we do is we focus on 3 key areas throughout the biorecycled service. We're working to build confidence in recycled products. This is particularly important for engineering teams and also sustainability teams that act as advocates. So providing information through case studies on long-term performance, maintenance, any benefits we know of, if products can be recycled at end of life, if they meet certain standards, and the list goes on. We also work with councils, particularly procurement teams and those purchasing, around improving procurement documentation and processes. So we have a sustainable procurement toolkit that's on our website, and that basically takes you through the full procurement life cycle and gives you ideas of where you can consider sustainability through each of the steps. We also provide templates such as evaluation criteria and response schedules, and we also have a data collection template available as well. And the last area that we focus on is that knowledge sharing and networking, which we are really finding as critical in getting this change moving. So it's really around getting councils to speak to each other, sharing their experiences of using recycled materials, providing intel into some of the challenges or approaches or benefits that they've had using recycled products. And I think what we've found really valuable is getting, for example, engineers from one council to speak to engineers at another council so they can share that technical knowledge. So we do this through a range of activities. So this is our biorecycled service in a nutshell. So some of you probably know about our biorecycled directory. This is our most popular part of our service, and it's really a gateway to our wider service, and you're welcome to check it out with that link there at the bottom. Just search biorecycled service and you'll see all these resources which are available to everyone. They're targeted at councils, but anyone can use them. So our directory showcases recycled products. It provides information on standards, case studies, the distance of where the suppliers are versus where a council might be located, the types of material used. We also, on our wider service, have things like case studies, which I mentioned are really critical in showcasing how other councils have used products successfully. We've also got in those case studies information if procurement processes had to change. We include that type of information there as well. And we drive collaboration through our event, council collaboration network, and monthly communications. So with our council collaboration network, it's basically a Yammer network. They can go on there. There's a dedicated sustainable procurement group where they can ask each other questions and get some answers. So we found that to be really valuable as well. And our Champions initiative, which I'll chat on in a moment. So the next few slides, I wanted to talk about what's created the biggest impact with our biorecycled service. And events, our in-person events in particular, have been really impactful. So last year we held a Western Council showcase. It was held at Geelong. And this year we actually have a Northern Council showcase, which is coming up in June this year. So at the Western Council showcase in Geelong, we had over 70 people attend across council, state government and industry. We held presentations. We had a mini trade hall where suppliers came in and they could speak directly with council officers, and like we've got outside today, with councils could actually see the products, could touch them, could ask any technical questions that they wanted. And we went out with this event on site tours as well. So we went out to a 20-year-old boardwalk made from recycled plastic. So that was really great because we were actually able to see how this boardwalk performed over 20 years. And we, as part of this event, also went to an organics facility because Geelong was one of the councils that has a facility very close and was able to buy back some of that material as well. So the event produced a number of connections between council and industry and researchers, like you would expect, but it had another impact that we didn't expect. So we had one director, and this is just one example, after the meeting send an all-staff email around to their council saying that part of my commitment to the circular economy team as director is to ensure a leadership push for recycled products and the circular economy to be part of our procurement projects and BAU. The director also commented that the council needed to move into making considerations of circular economy as a standard everyday practice, and that they will include recycled product and circular economy metrics into their priorities for the following year. Another high impact activity that we've done through the biorecycled service is our Champions initiative, and it's a bit of our favourite child at the moment, but the Champions initiative provides targeted support to a passionate group of council representatives who are interested in sustainable procurement, have the ability to influence procurement practices, and also are enthusiastic about sharing knowledge and working with other councils across Victoria. So we selected 23 champions across 20 councils through an EOI process, and the aim was really to provide those participants with opportunities where they could build capacity and knowledge, network, and as a result, influence other councils as well. So the champs were from across local government. They were from departments like engineering, procurement, design, sustainability, architecture, and circular economy, because as we know, all these areas need to get together to actually make a change. We organised for our champions to attend the National Transport Research Organisation facility to see how roads with recycled content are tested, and they also attended site visits to see recycled products in situ. Another activity we did with our champs was that we appointed Procurement Australia to work closely with them to look at their procurement documentation, and they looked at a number of different areas, but some of the things they looked at were adding clauses to procurement policies, looking at their evaluation criteria and response schedules or data collection processes. So I wanted to call out this specific example, which just shows how important this targeted support can be. So we had a really engaged champion from City of Casey, and after attending the lab tour we set up, she then shared this information about the testing facility and organised for 10 of her engineers at council to attend a similar testing facility in the region. And some of them had significant concerns about some of the products being used, but as a result of attending the tour, they were able to ask some of those more technical questions with the researchers and experts on the day. And as a result, she did say that some of the mind shifts, some of their mindsets did shift, and they were more open to trialling some of these products again. And this actually then inspired another champion to do the same with her council engineers as well. So it's been a bit of a journey for us with the Biorecycled service. So we launched our directory in 2020. We completed our council research for the overarching service a year later, and then we launched the full service in 2022. And so since then, we've built up our Knowledge Hub, which were those key activities that are available on our website. We've run events and site visits, and we've set up our Champs initiative. And now we're looking forward on how we can continue to support procurement of recycled materials and products, but also now expand more broadly into circular procurement. So what are some of the key takeaways we found from the Biorecycled service? So the councils we spoke to are all at different stages and have different priorities, different drivers and different barriers. So it's critical to meet them where they're at. So if they're struggling to adopt recycled materials or low carbon materials, find out how you can support them in their current position. Don't expect that you'll be able to adopt a full circular approach straight away. You may still need to work out the processes, getting teams on board and your documentation on board. So it's okay to take one step at a time. And the change is complex, so making small changes over time will create impact. Another finding that we've found is really just finding your advocates and champions within your organisation. Whether you work in an organisation or a council, finding like-minded people that you can really work together and drive that change. And I think it's important to recognise that in procurement, you're having to balance multiple considerations. So it's important for your organisation to have clear targets or values that you can then use as an anchor for your procurement priorities, which would then flow down as a result through your procurement policy and your documentation and processes. Case studies, networking, knowledge sharing have created a huge impact for our service, and it's allowed a faster adoption, I believe, for new thinking and provided a bit of positive peer pressure. And it's, from my experience, also brought our councils together. So where to next for us? So our team are transitioning to supporting a bi-circular approach and supporting more steps up that ladder. So while we still see supporting recycled materials and products as our bread and butter, we know that councils are having to consider multiple environmental, social and now circular considerations. So we have a role to play in this. So our focus will be around building that confidence of recycled and circular processes and services and products, improving those procurement processes, networking and knowledge sharing, and also working more closely with our suppliers as well and connecting the buyers with suppliers so that we can meet those goals together. So today's session was about our key learnings and high impact activities from the Biorecycled service and how we'll be using our experiences to develop the next iteration of the service to Bi-Circular. But what I hope you take from today is start wherever you're at and take small steps because circular procurement is a journey. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Very informative. Our next speaker is Marcel. She's from the New South Wales Environmental Protection Authority, or EPA as we know it in New South Wales. She's unit head at the Joint Procurement Service at the EPA and has worked in waste industry and sector for over 20 years. Over the past 12 years, she's held various roles in the EPA, developing and delivering waste and recycling policies, programs and strategy. Previously, Marcel has worked in councils as well, in consultancy, not-for-profit, and has a passion about driving circular economy outcomes for community. She currently leads an implementation of EPA's new joint waste program regarding procurement, aimed at helping councils to address the challenges in procuring waste services. So welcome, Marcel.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. I've just been told to do this presentation only yesterday, so bear with me. It might not quite fit into the schedule, or it's not really about circular procurement, but I think it sort of does fit in broadly. But no, I'm very happy to be here in this opportunity, so I thank the organisers for that. So as Anthony said, my name is Marcel and I head up a new team in the EPA looking at a joint procurement facilitation service, and I've been in this particular role since February of last year, so we're kind of really sort of at the start of this program that I'm delivering, or 1 year in. I think in my mind it's still a start because some of our programs go on for many years. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the program, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're helping councils in the waste procurement space. So just to give you some context for this program, it was a commitment under the waste strategy, so WASM. In WASM, we basically committed to help councils procuring waste contracts with a $16 million commitment over 5 years. And from WASM, basically the objectives set out for us were to help councils attract investment in new waste infrastructure, deliver good value for money for communities, and achieve better waste and recycling outcomes to support the transition to a circular economy. So that's broadly some of the objectives of the program and what we're trying to achieve. So when WASM was landed in 2021, the waste strategy, initially the EPA undertook a co-design process to work out how we're going to develop a program with those sort of broad outcomes. And this is a piece of work. I think some of you might have been at the conference last year, and Sarah Larkin talked about some of this co-design work. So I'll just be very quick about what they did, but the work was done basically consultation with councils and industry, and basically spoke to regional waste coordinators as well. There was some research done, an options paper was developed, and that was published on our website, and then following that, further feedback. So there was a consultation co-design process that I undertook, and I think that's the main point that I want to say about that process. It wasn't work I did, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but all that work was done, and that led to sort of building the blocks for what the facilitation service was going to do in the years to come, or the following sort of years after that. So in that co-design process, some of the things that the team discovered or worked through with looking at the barriers and opportunities for joint procurement. So some of the challenges, I guess, in this space, and all of this would be very familiar with you all, like things like information asymmetry. So councils often don't have the same amount of information as industry does when it comes to contracting. The councils have very broad range of skill sets involved around procurement. So some of them have excellent experience in it because they've done it before, and others, people might be newcomers to the industry, so they might have not undertaken a contract, any sort of waste contract before. And because of that, we know we've got a broad range of skill sets and capabilities and experience in procurement in local government. So they told us that, that's obviously a challenge for them. Just, another challenge is the constrained environment that we work of the waste industry, so just a bit constrained with the number of players in the industry. Transport and distance, especially in regional areas, and the whole point about joint procurement is you need to build relationships, and often councils, to order to do a joint procurement, you need to have commitment from all councils in your group that you want to work with. So that can often be a challenge if the commitment breaks down at some point in the procurement process. So they're just some of the challenges. Again, some of these are not unfamiliar to people, but from that co-design process and understanding, listening to councils, some of the opportunities and things that they identified the service could do would be things like supporting strategic development, strategic planning, and be more strategic in where infrastructure goes. Learning from each other. Also, they recognise that this has to be a service that has to be voluntary, so not actually mandating that we do anything jointly, just it's very much a voluntary program, and that we need to be flexible in how we deliver that. And it's also about building capacity in local government and helping them with resources, which is what I'm going to talk all about. So they're just some of the sort of findings from the co-design process, and now I'm going to talk about where we're at and what we're doing and going to be doing into the future. So broadly speaking, the Joint Procurement Facilitation Service basically looks like this. It's a team of, let's just call it 3, me, and I've just recruited 2 new people. But we're growing, and we're just, depending on what our needs are, we'll continue to grow. And so we've looked at the sort of the work streams that we're working on. We're looking at market data and analytics, so again, addressing the fact that councils need data, so we'll be looking at what those data needs are and working with other parts of the EPA to help deliver some of the data gaps. We acknowledge that council said they needed support, so we've actually already developed and delivered a funded support grant program, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. We identified that there would be a need to access experts, so procurement is a very complex and can be quite technical process and a very long time to deliver, and councils. Also, when I say councils, I also mean regional waste groups and our JOs and people like that as well are involved in this program. They all need experts to help them. So we acknowledge that and we're supporting that. And then the final piece of work stream in this service is developing training and guidance materials. And so that's these are the sorts of things that I'm working on at the moment, and I'll just talk about that a little bit more. So in terms of some of those work streams I haven't been able to develop extensively. As I said, I've only been in the role for just a little over a year. So where I've been putting my focus at the moment has been on the resources and the training needs. So we've recently, some of you might be aware, engaged Impact Environmental to deliver some free workshops, 9 workshops of local councils going across the state talking about procurement and waste procurement as a workshop, basically. So that's just something that we're able to achieve quite quickly. So some of you might have attended some of those workshops, or they'll be up and coming across in different parts of New South Wales. I'm currently got someone else helping us develop some case studies of different joint procurement exercises so that people can start to share the learnings and successes or failures or just challenges. So those case studies are currently under development. I'm also looking at other resources that we could produce. So at any time, I'm really open to hearing about what resources councils and regional coordinators might need, whether that be templates or tools or any sort of resource that could help them in any aspect of waste procurement. We're here and we can produce those sort of documents or resources and have them up on our website. So that's sort of the sorts of things I'll be talking to people about and constantly looking for new ideas there. In the capacity building area, I'm really keen to ensure that councils have the skills and experience that they need. So we're looking at what training programs we can develop, whether they be bespoke or offer off-the-shelf products, that training that councils can go to, and we can support councils to go along to those training things in contract and procurement. So we'll be looking at doing probably a bit of a needs analysis and understanding a little bit more about what councils' needs are around training in waste procurement, being it's a very specific thing that councils need to do. I mean, procurement's procurement, because there's lots of steps in procurement are quite the same, no matter what kind of procurement you're doing, but we want to bring the waste and recycling angle onto those big procurement projects that councils undertake from time to time, but they still have to do them. So just to go to the funded support, so some of you might be aware of this grant program that I'm delivering through this funding. The grant program was launched in November of last year, so it's really fresh and new. And it's really about providing tailored advice and support for councils through the full sort of procurement process, from planning a procurement to undertaking waste procurement. And it's providing councils with access of up to $500,000 through two streams, which I'll talk about in a moment, with stream one being funding of up to $250,000 to help with the planning stage of the procurement process. And then stream two, which is what we call the source stage. This is where councils are well and truly committed to undertaking a joint procurement. They can get grants of up to $500,000 to support all the experts and advice that they need to execute a joint procurement through stream two. So this grant program is ongoing, so there's no rounds. Councils can come and talk to me at any time and dip in and out of the grant program as and when they need it until the funds are exhausted. So we'll see when that is. I haven't worked out what that time is, but at the moment, estimating around 2027. But yeah. So just to give you a flavour of what we're targeting under this grant program at the moment, as I said, the eligible applicants have to be councils or regional waste groups or the regional waste coordinators. And the sorts of projects that we're targeting at the moment are domestic waste. It's all about domestic waste, and it's all about whether they're planning on, it can be building new infrastructure, or it could just be the normal waste services, putting the materials out in the market and not necessarily asking for infrastructure to be built on the back of it, but just recycling services or the organics services. So it's the full suite of the domestic waste services that councils run: your waste, your recycling, your organics, and household cleanup. So those are the waste services that the joint procurement can be, and it can be for transport, like I said, transporting it, or building infrastructure for those waste streams. So that's the scope of where the funding, and it has to be a joint procurement. So for stream two, it absolutely has to be a joint procurement that you're undertaking. Stream one has to be looking at joint procurement, but you don't actually have to be committed to a joint procurement. I'll talk about that in a moment. So what can be funded? So go back to just a bit more detail on it. So under stream one, like I said, it's basically about planning for a joint procurement. So this is where councils might be thinking, is joint procurement the right for us? What are my procurement options? They might want to do a feasibility study. They might want to do a technology assessment. They might want to look at what planning, getting some pre-work done to help them make decisions, or to help work with their with the neighbouring councils or do some data analytics. So it's anything that prepares them shows us that they're considering whether joint procurement is right for them. It's okay if a joint procurement is the outcome of all this, their work or their research project is that joint procurement's not right for them. That's completely fine. We're not here to say it is the answer, you must joint procure. We just want to make sure councils have thought about the best way to deliver their services to their communities. And so with stream 1, councils, it can be a single council coming to us for a grant. You don't have to be already a group or even a committed group or anything like that. It could just be a single council, thinking about working with neighbouring councils, and they want to explore that. But with stream 2, this is actually where, in order for councils to be successful in a grant in this stream, they really do need to have been in a committed, demonstrate in the grant that in the application that they've committed to a joint procurement. So usually an MOU or council resolution saying that they're working as a group. We don't want projects that are not quite there yet in their commitment from the highest levels within their organisations, because we want to make sure that these joint procurements, they're coming to us for the detailed advice for legal, the probity, the ACCC application, to support the management of the procurement exercise. So they're the sorts of things that they can get funding for. Obviously, we don't want to be spending money on, and large amounts of money on those sorts of specialties if it's not going to make it all the way through the procurement process and councils start to drop out. So it's got to be a committed joint procurement, at least at the start. We can't, obviously, MOUs are obviously binding, not binding. Councils do sometimes drop out, but we're trying our best to, we all want that to happen, but that's the best that we can do for the grant program. So they're the two streams. That's the bulk of where we're looking at with this particular grant program right now. But really, I'm really keen to talk to anyone who has any ideas about what else the service can do, in terms, particularly around supporting, developing resources and capacity building councils. If there's any tools or resources that you need or think would be useful in helping councils, undertake procurement of waste services, please do come and talk to me. And I think that was my last slide. Yeah, like I said, this slide deck was obviously not meant to be for this conference, but I was happy to jump in and deliver it anyway. But really, there's my contact details, and Kirsty's one of the senior project officer who's not here today, is also in the team. But yeah, happy to talk to anyone about the work that we're doing. So that's it.
Great, thanks, Marcel. I'm sure we'll be getting in contact with you to look at our eligibility and criteria, especially local government in New South Wales. Our next speaker is Abbas, and he's from company Bold Futures. So he'll be speaking to us about the importance of collaboration again, and we're hearing that's a very important theme around procurement. He's certainly passionate about sustainability, a leader with a proven track record in architecture, engineering, construction for sustainable built environment, certainly with an acumen and tenacity for project management, for stakeholder engagement and CSR management. He has worked across the globe and travelled extensively, particularly in the UK, Australia and UAE. He has a thorough understanding of sustainability trajectories, driving the construction and the built environment industries, particularly across the supply chain and including circular economy. He also has a strong understanding for future trends impacting the provision of education, which you heard is very important, training and employment, and things such as sustainability, globalisation and the gig economy. So welcome, Abbas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Anthony, for this introduction. I'm delighted to be here. Most of my career, I've been an academic, so academic, what we do is creating new knowledge, be critical of what's happening in our society. So I see myself, a lot of engineers here, but I see myself as a social scientist. So I'm more interested about, why people, why do as human beings do the way we do, why do we behave the way we behave, and what context and what drive those kind of contexts. So I'm from Ball Fuchsia. We are a consultancy. I just joined them, about 1 year ago, to raise, the sustainability in terms of ESG within the organization based in Sydney. I'm excited that, a lot of talk about collaboration this morning. It's fantastic, to hear that, and also about procurement, sustainable procurement, circular procurement. And I think the time for the presentation is very timely as well. It's, I think about a week ago, the government produced their sustainable procurement document. I think it's about last week. And then, last night or 2 nights ago was the budget as well, which is kind of moving towards sustainability and the green industries. But how do we go there, if we talk about collaborations? And what does it mean to us? And how do we do it, So those kind of the challenges. And why we are not collaborating. I think, we heard from Dian, the amazing, fantastic, collaboration. And I'm sure we all have our different story about collaborations. But why we are not doing? Why is it not common practice? Why do we talk about it as if something new or something we need to do? And I come from the construction industry. It is very competitive industry. I'm sure you watch, current affairs, and always is about builders and ethical behavior and so forth. So the challenge always, in sustainability is with regard, to the collaboration is massive as well. And the challenge is the IPCC documented that, something needs to be done in terms of climate change. And there is huge amount of policy. We see, the EBA, amazing work, leadership, in Australia. Here I see it, I'm fond about it. Although, some Australian colleagues and friends are a little bit critical, but that's where this journey is starting, and I believe, there is a lot going. But there is this joint effort. So usually you see, there is a gap between the policies and what's happening in practice. And then when it happens, even smaller, when you go to smaller businesses. So for me, if I'm leading a smaller business, my worries on daily basis will be, the bottom line. How do I pay the wages for the people I work with? How do I work, within the industry and so forth? So for me, I see that collaboration could be the link to further develop not only, bringing those policies, but create new economies and new businesses as well. So I got, this, what is sustainable procurement or circular procurement, if you like. This is from the documents just released about 3 weeks ago. Environmental sustainable procurement, the act of selecting goods and services that have the most positive environmental impact throughout the life cycle, and strive to minimize adverse impacts and that was helping to tackle global challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, waste, and pollution. It's very ambitious and fantastic, to give us, that kind of framework. And then, colleagues, they go, into different procurement, and then when they tender, they get, the text, this, are you doing this? What about ESG? How much carbon is coming here? All this is fantastic. But the challenge, how do we go and do it? And in construction, the problem always been about these competitions. And the challenge always is adversarial relationship between the clients, the contractors, and the subcontractors as well, always. Why? Because it is always developed in the way that it's about cost. And then everybody, using that kind of thinking and ideas about, what is competitions mean to them in different ways. So, for example, I'm an academic, management guru. I sell and buy, competitions. This is what, I say, I go and advise companies, this, you want to be competitive, this is what you need to do. And then, people in the industry, they work in different ways. And then people, the client, they have different ways of understanding, So the client, competitions, they use competitions to get the most important, governments, for example, value for money. This is the public money, the taxpayers or the ratepayers here, you say in Australia. So this kind of the different ways of understanding the competition, different people. And that's kind of create this kind of idea of disjointed effort between policies and practices. And the challenge is huge. If you look at the construction industry, you have to understand the industry by itself. Companies and then products. It's very complex. And also in the waste management, we see a lot of complexity in all those kind of areas. We hear stories that people within organizations, they don't know what they're doing. Even, people sitting within across each other, across corridors, they don't know and they don't collaborate with each other. But where is it coming from? Why we are so competitive? Why is it all about cost? And if you look back, to it, it goes back, some of the thinking, Darwinism, survival of the fittest. Although Darwin talked about collaborations a lot, but we didn't use that. Because the management, the practices, we focus on that. Adam Smith talk about the self-regarding. We are human, are selfish by nature. We just think about ourselves. And that's true, we do. But he talked about altruism. We are the most altruistic animals on the planet, human. We do that. Even, the easiest way, parenthood, that's the most altruistic. It's a huge cost, for parents, to look after their children. And they do it because of the altruistic nature of it. So you can see those kind of challenges. And then came the work of Michael Porter. Michael Porter in the 80s, he started looking at competitions. And he came with the model of competitiveness, which is just simplicity as itself. The relation between the buyer and the seller, the bargaining. How much do you prepare to pay for it? How much does it cost? How much do I make profit? That was his model. And he looked at, this bargaining power, but also he looked at, the rivalry within any industry, how they compete with each other. And also the challenge, substitute product. So you can produce whatever you want to produce at home, but there's other industry contractors producing homes as well. So that's kind of Michael Porter. But Michael Porter later on changed, in his work in the Harvard Business Review in the 90s, and start talk more about collaborations as well, and then, start looking at not competitions and not only the bargaining power, but to start looking at people as well, the knowledge, and then become the knowledge management and so forth. So this is kind of the background for construction. And what happened, and at the same, I see it in the waste management industry as well. It's huge, and it's causing those problems. War of price undercutting. Who's not familiar with that? We know that tendering, if you're tendering for any government, lowest price. Sometimes they said, okay, it could be sustainability and possibility, but at the end of the day, it's price, lowest price. And I see it and I hear it. A lot of people, they do tendering at lowest cost. And then also I go with meeting with clients. They said to me, Abbas, I'm happy, to take your circular ideas and waste management, but at no extra cost from landfill. So whatever it costs me with my waste going to the landfill, you have to do your solutions for me in terms of recycling and waste management. That's where the challenge. And imagine that challenge, for people running, small businesses. Quality safety concern, quality will drop. We see that in construction, for example, in recyclable. What it's called? Red cycle, was it? For the plastic kind of schemes like that. Skill shortages in Australia, big issues. Low motivation, mental health, well-being. If you are in that competitive environment, it's hard. It is really hard. It's tough. It's tough on you to go there day on, day out, to work, in the industry. Is that competitive, like the construction industry? And this, sadly, in the construction, mental health is a big issue. Innovation and technology lag. People, they don't have the time. They don't have the resources to do that. Project delays, disputes. If you want, the best job, be a lawyer in construction. This is what we say. Lawyers, they make more money than the top contractors because of the dispute. Sustainability environmental impact is huge, and market consolidation. We see a lot of merger and acquisition as well. And these kind of changes, I think there's been always cultural change. How do we move away from that competition and understanding competitions? And we need that cultural change. But what do you mean by cultural change, and how does it happen, and how do we be able to collaborate and so forth? And this, bringing the ideas into circularity. So the circular thinking provides us that mechanism. That mechanism, to be more collaborative. in the way we're doing things, and also rethinking not only the design processes, but the business models. The business models, working on cost only, they have to change. If they didn't work and they caused us to this problem, to where we are now, they're not going to work. So we need to rethink the business models. And that the business model has to change into more collaborative to create, for example, joint value for business, particularly in the industry. And in the construction, always, the ideas are very simple. Designing out waste and pollutions, keep production and materials in use, and regenerative design. And circularity will enhance the opportunities for the industries, whether it is waste, whether it is in the construction, or the construction industry. In terms of resource efficiency, conservation, waste reduction, because we collaborate, we know better. There's some people, they know better waste, they architects, different, as Diane said, there's architects, there's engineers, there's a social scientist. All those, they have different ways, and they bring a lot of different advantages to the processes. And this is what happened. It will reduce cost savings as well. Job creations, improve reputation and compliance. Compliance will become a big issue as well for all organizations, and long-term viability. And my message here is always about collaborations. And this kind of industrial symbiosis, some of the speakers in the morning, they were talking about that. How do we create those kind of relationship within the industry, in the waste management? And what we're trying to do in our thinking and with Paul Ferruccia, in terms of approach, we look at collaborative approaches, use the data. We have opportunity to use the data, and best practice and innovations as well. And that only can create, by sharing knowledge and experiences. And we believe that, that will create improved environmental performance, cost savings, and also enhance the reputations of organizations. I'm a very big picture person. I like, the big picture, to look at the wider things. So if you look at the circular economy, we talk about recycle, repurpose, repair, manufacture, and everybody is in our own bubble. But it's critical to look at, the journey, and the engagement, from the system, type of waste materials, the collection side from council, from all organizations, how is it related? And then bringing that, engaging with all the stakeholder engagement and using the technologies while auditing and reviewing those processes. As many colleagues said, it is about that journey, engaging that journey. And the most important is the learning and sharing of experiences. So I think, the wider picture, it helps even everybody. Just I know what other people doing. So even if I'm working, on Fogo, for example, West Stream 1 in Fogo, but I understand all those kind of information and that kind of challenge, that's facing other people. And then the best way, to be collaborative, understand other people's point of view and how they do things as well, and share my experience with them. Because if you look at it, the technology is there, and in terms of waste management, and the opportunities are huge in terms of the solutions. Of course, we advocate for waste to energy, incineration, for example, but that's something I think is challenging in Australia still, but that is done in Europe. We heard that in the morning in Holland. Most of their waste is incinerated for power, 90% of it. So we use the technology as well. We develop our own technology systems, and that's just to help us to understand the functionality of all aspects. And we also developing working with different organizations in Europe. This company using artificial intelligence, and because of the EPR, extended producer responsibility in Europe, it has become mandatory. So Coca-Cola, they are responsible in Europe for all their cans. So they're using this kind of technology in Europe, artificial intelligence, and now this is kind of identifying mostly about 65 different elements, and it's still increasing. So it is still very low compared to what you expect in typical waste. Also, we're using, different building modeling. We engage, with some organizations in the industry and the use of robotics. But also, for me, coming from academia, I love academia, research and development. And then, we're talking about this human-robot teaming. And this we work with colleagues at UTS. And don't think that is just new ideas. This kind of robot already been used in the Harbour Bridge for painting and maintenance of the Harbour Bridge. Some areas, nobody can get to it, so they're using this kind of technology. So this kind of the reality of using the technology, and that only can help us, to be able to collaborate better. So the idea of the technology to resolve problems, but also to bring people together, the technology and human to work together. And for me, I advocate collaborations. I think the opportunities are there in terms of relationship and developing partnerships. And I think, this I like, since here, there's values of collaboration and trust. We have to build that, And I think, government and industrial associations, they have a big role to play here. In the incentives, for example, in the procurement model, is the government still continuing value for money? Is the procurement will be low cost, or is it partnership? Is partnership will be part of the procurement models? How do you supply the chain? How do you support small businesses in the area, in the waste management, and so forth? I think this could be vital in helping, particularly now. It is more needed now. I think the economic conditions now, especially for the small businesses. Everybody, we all need a bit of help. But how do we do it? How do we collaborate? We said, we are selfish. We are human, are selfish. They don't. We all thinking about ourselves. It cuts throat. It's the macho culture. We all hear that. But how do we? I think in difficult conditions, I start going back to the Harvard Business Review and just read, what they say. And the language they're using is totally different now from the 80s. 80s, Michael Porter, it's all about cost. Reduce your cost. But now, language, they said, when anxiety is high and morale is low, kindness is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Different total language, you never hear it in management, But how do we become, simplest, they said, simplest way, to be collaborative. Be a collaborative, not opponent. We always, when we go, the very thing we think of opponent. Imagine if you're driving in the street, driving your car and somebody do something bad for you. We human, we react. You always react in the same way. And we see each other sometimes as opponent and adversarial. But that has to be changed. And it's big human to human, anticipatory actions and plan counter moves, replace blame with curiosity, and also ask for feedback on how you communicate, and also measure psychological safety. And this, for me, most of the work I do in cultural change, and in organizations, why do people, they don't speak up? Because of the lack of the psychological safety. I'm not safe, I can't speak. And then when you don't have that psychological safety, then you are not harnessing that knowledge sharing. Because where is your knowledge? Your knowledge, it is in the people. It is in the head of the people. Whatever you do, whatever you have to grab that knowledge from people, it's impossible. Always the tacit knowledge, that knowledge in the heads of your employees, that's where, your high resources, and that, where you can capture that. And the only way to do that, collaborative culture, collaborative environment, psychological safety. And even this lunch, we were talking about, some organizations, and many people, they said to me, Abbas, even the engineers in different departments, they don't know what's happening. Even they bought some of our equipment in one department, and then in another department, they don't know that equipment existed. And that's where the challenges and the opportunities. Thank you, Anthony. So I think, we need a healthy competition. Competition will always be there. We need a healthy competition, but we need to eliminate the competition when we go there, to win everything. I think, collaborations, with this opportunity to create linkage between this ambitious policy and strategies with on-ground construction and operation. And that, I believe, definitely will create new businesses, jobs, hence growing industry and the economy. And I think, by embracing these positions, businesses for long-term success will be contributing to more prosperous and sustainable future. I just finished this with this quote. I got it, from the Environmental Sustainable Procurement Policy released. The path to a more healthy and productive construction does need to be a collaborative one. We urge the government, industry, and unions to come together and make improving construction productivity a nation-building priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abbas. That was very interesting and reinforces a lot of our thinking today around sustainable procurement. Our next speaker is Vincent Ogu, who is from the Southern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, or SSROC, where he's a program manager. He's currently working with the Paving the Way, a rubber collaborative project, and he's also the chair of the SSROC Sustainability Environmental Management Group, and has previously held positions as strategic manager within the same organisation. He has held research fellow positions, including prestigious Vice-Chancellor postdoctoral fellowship at Uni New South Wales. He's experienced in the government sector, having held management roles in research analysis, housing, human services sector, and in strategic planning, particularly in state agencies and in some councils. He's a fellow at the Planning Institute Australia, so we welcome Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, and good afternoon, everyone. It is that time of the day, so I won't keep you too long. My presentation, or my role today, is essentially to share a story, an exciting story at that, of success in collaboration. A number of my colleagues today have emphasized the need for collaboration and how important it is in sustainable procurement. And I endorse those sentiments. Now, look, this is an excitement that is not just shared by me alone. Look, work can be boring. But when it becomes exciting, it can be really, really exciting. But it's also an excitement which our council members have shared as well, the mayors, the general managers, but not just council, even the media. You know how you put out media release and there is no call. But when they begin to call you, say, can we work on a story? Then you know there is something exciting. But it's also an excitement which industry has also shared. It is the use of end-of-life recycled rubber, car passenger tires and truck tires, and then recycled into crumbled rubber that is now mixed in bitumen for asphalt pavement. It has been an exciting one, but why wouldn't we be excited? Because councils manage 85% of all roads in Australia. And assuming they all key into this, that is huge. And even people in research, the experts in the universities, for example, some of the experts we are working with at RMIT University have said that the use of end-of-life tires for building of new roads can actually lead to a reduction of about 72% in CO2 emissions compared to when those tires end up in landfill. And again, consider that in New South Wales, where we are now talking about by 2030s that we may run out of landfills in Sydney. Consider that we are talking about hundreds of thousands of end-of-life tires that end up in landfills. In Australia, about 450,000 tons of end-of-life tires are generated every year. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's an exciting one, and I'm very excited to talk about it. Now, before we get into the exciting part, SSROC. SSROC is Southern Sydney Regional Organization of Councils. And this range from councils from the Sydney Harbour, City of Sydney, many of you know City of Sydney for sure, but through the suburbs, the coastal areas, the beaches, Sutherland, Inner West, Far West to Canterbury Bankstown, probably the biggest council in New South Wales. So we've got big councils. We've got wealthy councils, but we also got small councils. So part of the excitement is getting this diversity of councils to work together, to agree on an innovative initiative. It's challenging, but turned to an excitement. There is no doubt about that. Now, how did we get here? Boom, in 2017, the Chinese government, under their national sword policy, they actually banned importation of commingled recyclable materials. That hit councils hard. But they were still thinking about that, when in fact, the Council of Australian Governments prohibited the exportation of unprocessed recyclable materials. Wow. Councils now find themselves in a situation where do nothing is not an option. Because a situation where valuable recyclable materials end up in landfill is not a good look for councils. And you know the communities out there, when you ask them to sort things, they all end up in the landfill anyway. You are now up for reputational challenges. But councils took up the challenge. Doing something, they did. What they did was to come up with what we call the Procure Recycled. Now, this is an initiative where the councils entered into memorandum of understanding. Yes, memorandum of understanding, very important. Councils are very good with that. So, and part of that is a clause that gave preference to innovation, gave preference to use of recycled materials as much as possible in procurements by council. They now went further to, they now also went further to have what we call the master supplier agreement. So that now made it obvious that councils would need to give preference to sustainable materials. Now, but let me step back a bit. Why do I say that this is exciting? Many of our colleagues have talked about collaboration, which is, I do agree. But look at this in reality. Getting 12 councils, one of them is not our member, Northern Beaches was part of this as well. Getting them to agree on one initiative, particularly one that councillors would need to endorse, get the GMs and the mayors on board, is enough challenge in itself. But even within councils, it is easier to get waste managers on board. They can relate to the fact that, yeah, no, you don't want those tires to go to the landfill. The landfill is going to run out. You would also get the sustainability managers on board because, yeah, that would lead to a reduction in net zero emissions for councils. But what of the civil engineers who are used to those capital works? For many of you who are familiar with councils, when you talk of the 3 hours, when you talk about the rates, the roads, rates, and rubbish, or whichever you want to call it, councils spend a lot in road maintenance or in building roads. It's probably the single most expensive part of their budgets. Now, getting the engineers on board on this as well was a big deal, but that we also surmounted because of arguments about durability, how over time this is more durable, and the fact that councils have now committed themselves to sustainable procurement, that also helped. But bang, think about it, industry, yes. The steel worship, product steel worship, in this case, the Tire Steel Worship Australia came on board. And we also have the Australia Flexible Pavements Association come on board. It's becoming very exciting. Even the universities were not left out. RMIT was also working closely with us. That was very exciting. But there were two phases. We did the first procurement we did, recycled procurement we did, was crushed glass. The use of crushed glass for pavements. Gee, that was a success. Sorry, where are we? Okay, good. Crushed glass. So that process involved recycled crushed glass in rows as substitute for natural sand, and it stimulated infrastructure investment, certainly in glass beautification plants. And it created market for about 1/3 of the glass materials generated by our councils. That was huge. About 33 million glasses equivalent were involved in this process. So bang, that was huge. But I'm not here to celebrate that. Back to the to recycled rubber. But that was the phase one, which gave councils that encouragement that we can actually work together. Yeah, we can do it. We've done it. Let's go for it. So the paving the way recycled rubber was an outstanding one in that we had to work with 12 councils, but not only that, it actually involved an extensive involvement and engagement within councils. For example, the engineers, we also had a technical advisor, Maurice in Law, and Mark is here. So engaging with those sectors as well. But why it's also very significant for us was that actually even doing the pilot alone, the demonstration alone, involved the use of over 28 kg of chrome rubber as part of this. And estimates have shown that if all councils in SSROC were to transit to the use of chrome rubber for their pavement works, actually that will take off 250,000 end-of-life tires from the landfill. And SSROC area is 1/3 of Sydney. So if the whole of Sydney we have to do that, we are talking about 750,000 end-of-life tires. Try to replicate that across Australia. That is huge. Below there are the councils that were involved in the demonstration work. Now, there were quite a process that was involved in that, but I wouldn't bother you too much, but just emphasize the role of collaboration in this. Tire Steel Worship Australia committed some funding towards independent evaluation, technical support, and strategic advice to SSROC. The Australian Flexible Pavements Association developed the technical and site monitoring framework that guided the rubber-modified bitumen asphalt and also monitored its performance at the demonstration sites. And RMIT worked on the life cycle assessment to ensure whether this is what do we say, whether that is environmental sustainable, but also whether is worth the money. You know, councils don't just want to invest for investing's sake. So they looked at the environmental effects and sustainability aspects, as well as the durability aspects of it as well. As I mentioned earlier, we engaged some experts, Morrison Law, as technical advisor that we're advising SSROC. So there you go. We've got those collaborations going on between TS and SSROC, collaborating with AFPA as well, and then get the uni experts to do the assessments. But then our procurement team was also involved. So this is one of those projects that not just one unit is doing this. Our procurement team went into a thorough, extensive process of procurement. Eventually, 3 suppliers were engaged, including Borough, State Asphalt, and Copenhagen. We get into the more exciting ones. Okay, thank you. Now, why I said more exciting, now you know what the councils and mayors can be like. The demonstration sites launch were covered by print and electronic media, local, national, Channel 7 named them, because it made news. There were a lot of headlines that councils were at the lead of an initiative that will involve the use of hundreds of thousands of end-of-life tires that now will be turned into recycled for road pavement. That's a good news to hear. So that was good. But it also involved maintaining some momentum with council, maintaining that momentum as well. But the scrutiny of ensuring that it all goes well. So the part of that demonstration work then involved some specifications, because AFPA had worked very closely with our engineers in developing specifications, and came up with some sets of specifications, I think about 3 types of them, so that some specifications were used for certain demonstration sites, so that after the monitoring, we now find how all that went. And part of that as well, obviously, as I've mentioned, monitoring is the 0 month, the 6 months, and the 12 month. The 6-month demonstration monitoring report has been completed, but by June this year, the 12-month monitoring report will be out, and AFPA will do a technical analysis based on that. Yeah, so those demonstration work took place between May to anywhere June, July last year. Most of those demonstration works were completed within those periods. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the life cycle assessment, because that was very important for this project. As I said earlier, councils are keen to ensure, because initially when we started, obviously you would know that there will be some councillors that are very environment-minded. Are you so sure? Are you really sure that there aren't any environmental impacts? So we are getting those calls, and we are addressing those concerns as they come in order to build confidence within community as well, because you need to carry the community along. And 3 case studies were picked up. Those were Burwood, Sydney, and Northern Beaches. But ultimately, those thorough LCA analysis were done using those case studies that looked at the raw materials, the production, the construction, anywhere looking at the electricity, the gas, the oil, the water that were involved in those processes. It was a thorough, comprehensive analysis. I can tell you that for free. Yep, those were the case studies. Now, it was a holistic approach, the life cycle assessment. As I mentioned earlier, we went through the extraction of the raw materials to the asphalt production, the pavement, the operation, maintenance phases, at the end of life, even at the end of life, because one thing about use of recycled is that it can also, at the end of life, turn it as a reclaimed asphalt pavement as well. It goes back into the process of production. So went through all those processes, and that was a thorough one as well. But the part of the findings showed, and that got us all excited, and we actually had a webinar on the 30th of April that was open to all council waste managers, civil engineers, and sustainability managers across Australia. We also got people dialing from overseas. The life cycle assessment showed that actually the use of chrome rubber or recycled rubber in asphalt for pavement compared to conventional asphalt has got heaps of environmental benefits. It also demonstrated that in terms of durability, that is actually more durable. And when you look at the maintenance phases that councils go through for their roads, whether you want to use 20, 30, 40, 50-year kind of comparison, you find that the use of chrome rubber there means that it takes more time. If councils were removing the pavements, laying new ones every 10 years, it's actually not going to be every 12 years. And then when you take that, you now find that comparatively, you now find that it's actually more cost effective. And again, each time you are using more asphalt to replace maintained roads, obviously, that's emitting CO2 as part of that production process. So the life cycle assessment looked thoroughly into this and then came into those conclusions. So obviously it has got environmental benefits, CO2 reduction, but also the pavement of extension of pavement service life are one of the benefits we have found as part of this project. I will skip that one, if I may. Yeah. So the outcomes speak for themselves. Diversion from landfill, sustainability of council roads, and the fact that it has now created scalable market end of life for tires. Collaboration, my colleague said collaboration, collaboration. It involved councils working with industry to make this happen. Now we're developing, that's the last slide, we're developing fact sheet because we wanted to make sure that our councillors and the community know what it is and what it is not. Again, I talked about the monitoring. Eventually, we will be developing specifications which now enable the engineers to use that as part of business as usual. We did that for crushed glass. We work with Transport for New South Wales, work with Institute of Public Works Engineers. So we're going to do that as well for this. Thank you very much.
If you just state your name and where you're from and direct your question to one of the speakers here today, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John from New South Wales EPA. I got a question for the last speakers regarding the asphalt. So you mentioned about the using recycled rubber can extend the lifespan of the asphalt. So that I just wonder how that results come from. Are they based on university research or? Because from my understanding, life cycle assessment cannot tell you that conclusion, and that should come from experimental results. And I just wonder how how did the university that work out like the lifespan, actual lifespan, yeah, of the recycled rubber in Ashford?
Thank you. The professor who led the life cycle assessment is a professor of civil and infrastructure engineering and is an expert in this field across Australia. So what has happened is that as part of the demonstration site work was that the companies that were that led this recycled borough, that led this work in terms of use of chrome rubber or recycled rubber impeachment, they were asked to keep absolute record of everything, including power, energy, everything that was used in this process. And again, when this was being laid as well, it was also being compared with conventional use of asphalt for pavements. So when you now compare the two, but again, as I outlined, a very thorough analysis. I'm not an engineer myself. When I was preparing these slides, I had to cut off a lot of things that were a lot of engineering stuff. I didn't want to switch people off, but that was a thorough one. Yeah, and you can actually talk to our technical advisor after this, Mark is here after that.
We'd love to, yeah. And actually, I got second questions. I understand for the recycle, the gases, and there's a general order, New South Wales Resource Recovery Order and exemptions allowed you to use that material for road making. My question would be, is there any plan to get a Resource Recovery Order exemptions for the recycled rubber, or have you already obtained one for that trial in the 12 councils? Yeah.
Look, all I can say very briefly is that in the process of the crushed glass, such as even the chrome rubber, we followed every regulation of EPA and Transport for New South Wales.
My name is Jeff Hem. I'm also a resident of the Georges River Council area. Look, I don't want to be cynical, but how much crumb rubber have you got, and what difference is this going to make to our roads in Georges River? And also, what are the benefits of roads with crumb rubber? I believe it makes travelling on them much quieter as well. So, as a resident, I'd like to know, what difference is this going to make to me? It might sound very selfish and self-centred, but thousands of other residents out there would like to know the same thing.
Yeah, thank you. But that's a good one. Look, when we try to look at the benefits, we are pretty holistic about it. First, when those remember these are end-of-life tires that will now end up in landfill, right? And they would also, not only that they will fill up those places quicker, but they will also be emitting CO2 emissions. That would happen. And research has shown that when you use end-of-life tires, make them into asphalt, compared to when you leave them in landfill. In landfill, it will generate 72% more emission of CO2 into the atmosphere. So that alone is an advantage. But let's even look at the dollars. It is more durable. It is about 20 to 50% more durable compared to conventional asphalt. So, and when you look at that in terms of the budget councils over time use in maintaining roads, that also makes financial sense. And again, in the process of processing those end-of-life tires, even the steel that comes out there are extracted and also reprocessed. So either way you look at it, it makes a lot of sense. Environment-wise, it makes sense. Financial-wise, it makes sense. And in terms of creating market for what essentially is now regarded, it's end-of-life tire, is a waste, throw it out, off you go to the landfill. But creating market, using that now as a resource, makes a lot of sense.
Hi, Annette Brody from the Reconnect Project. My question's for Marcel. You talked about the joint procurement in terms of waste services. There was recycling, there was remanufacturing, there was reprocessing. There was no opportunity to extend that into repair or reuse initiatives to stop things from going to reprocessing?
That's correct at the moment. This particular program is targeting, initially targeting the big infrastructure gaps in the state. So as I said, it came from WASM, this initiative, and the overall direction of the program and of the actual entire sort of facilitation service is to help councils jointly procure for waste services. But I take your point. I do listen to what councils need, and this I'm very open to pivoting and or expanding the scope of the program, the grant program, or even the work that I'm doing in this space, where the need is as I said, it's only immature. The program's only been operating for a year, and I had to address the initial priority of the program, and I'll continue to monitor whether or not I need to look at the scope. And where council is saying we want to get more into offering reuse and repair facilities or services, that might be something that we can look at going once I've seen where the demand is and what we can do. So I'm very much open to suggestions on that. Thanks.
One question for you, Marcella. Marcella, in terms of collaboration.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Just one question coming to, and we've seen, fantastic collaboration here between 12 council. Is that something you're thinking about, in terms of, engaging council, working with each other, please?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the point. The program is targeting councils to jointly procure. So if, obviously, to get to a joint procurement, a lot of conversations and a lot of discussion needs to be had at the officer level, and then obviously the CEO or the GM level and councillors if they're going to go down that path. So if the councils need help in their discussions, facilitating discussions, because I'm sure it takes quite a long time to arrive at a decision, that's what the stage 1 grant's for, so that they might need someone to help facilitate the discussions, run workshops with councillors so they can understand the issues, to bring them on board. That's where councillors can get help from the facilitation service.
No further questions. I'd like you to thank the speakers one more time. Just a reminder, if you're going to the function tonight, don't forget your little red ticket on the back. You need that to enter. It is a dress up, so I encourage you all to come along and have a fun night. There are buses, I think, going from this resort there, courtesy buses to and from Pacific Bay, so please look at your timetable and everyone have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.